called a branch baby in Darlington County, and baby of 5 boys. My mom and dad, my dad worked at Sunoco Products for 48 years and farmed on the side and built houses on the side and just worked all the time, 5 boys. And then my mom was my daddy was, I got my work, I like to say I got my work ethic from my father, because I see him when I get on the school bus in the morning. He was getting off 3rd shift, and when I come home in the afternoon, he was on the tractor. So he worked all the time. And my mother got my ambition from her. She was always wanting more, doing more, trying to start business, entrepreneurial stuff. She did restaurants and drive-in movie theaters and built houses. And
so you got all this honest. This came honestly.
Yeah. They grew up there and went to, obviously Boy Scout were a big part of me when I was growing up.
Don't race past that. Tim's an Eagle Scout, and for those that have ever been involved, look, I liken it to the Marine Corps. I had a son that was an Eagle Scout, and I saw what it took to do that. So certainly that had an impact.
It had great impact. Of course, A.D. Jordan here today with Senator Tim Scott. He's an Eagle Scout. We worked at Camp Coker together. But yeah, through the scouting program, and then graduated, went to St. John's High School for a couple of years. I had to repeat 10th grade. I was so involved in scouting, I didn't study much, so my mother made me move to another school and made me repeat the 10th grade, which was a very humbling experience. And went to Francis Marion, graduated from there, and through there I was fraternity. I was head of the student entertainment council, president of student government, and just had a great career at Francis Marion. And moved to Texas. My first job, real job, was with Milliken Company, textile company. 1978, moved to LaGrange, Georgia, and then to Austin, Texas, and I was there about 2 years. And looked at it like it was going to be like a boot camp for me. I always wanted to be back in South Carolina. Never wanted to leave the South, and moving to Texas was just a way to experience life in a different area. And so, anyway, that's kind of in a nutshell where I am.
You know, you're like me. I mean, and many in this room has had opportunities to go elsewhere. Curtis said Marine Corps, I did that, but I always knew that I'd settle down in these parts. And the people you see here, as I look at all the faces, same folks, plenty of opportunities, but their hearts right here in the PD in rural South Carolina. So what got you back from Texas to South Carolina?
Well, like I said, I never wanted to leave. I was out there, and I got a cute story that I was out there in Texas, and I met this debutante in San Antonio, real rich family, and you know, I'm Indian Branch Road, and I got exposed to so much through this family in San Antonio. I was doing pretty good in 1978. I was making like $24,000 and had a brand new car, and I thought I was doing good. And
I was making 12,000. We were making 12,000 at the morning news in 1988.
Yeah. So anyway, I'd stay in there with Dr. and Mrs. Douglas's house, and I was in there making phone calls one morning. You know, no cell phones. You just dialing up and making appointments. And Mrs. Douglas comes in. She says, "Tim, can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You know, Hillary, she really, likes you a lot." That's why I like her a lot too. And she says, "And we like you a lot." I said, "I like y'all too." And she says, "Have you ever thought about being a professional?" I said, "Professional? Well, I thought I was a professional salesperson. I mean, I've been trained and I was doing really well." She said, I looked at her curious. She said, "I mean, like a doctor, lawyer, CPA." I said, I couldn't ever get. I was graduated at 2.2. I couldn't ever get law school. And she said, "No, well, you could probably get in law school." I said, "I don't know, Miss Douglas." And she said, "Well, won't you just?" I don't know. I said, "I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, own my own business, control my own destiny." And she said, "Well," and this is good advice that I never took. She said, "Well, you don't have to practice law. You can have the knowledge of the law." And I said, "I don't know, Miss Douglas." And then she says, "Come with me." And she takes me upstairs, and thought I was going to have a Mrs. Robinson moment for a minute. She takes me upstairs, and she pulls out in her safe a diamond about as big as my Francis Marion ring here. And she said, "When the time's right, Tim, you can give this to Hillary." And I said, law school doesn't sound so bad. And so I agreed to take the LSAT, and I bombed it. I mean, I the minimum score, and so I come back. And I've done it, Ms. Douglas. It won't work. She said, we really want our daughter to marry professionally. So what you need to do is quit your job. Turn your car in, quit your job, live on our ranch, a 1,000-acre ranch in Pipe Creek, and take the Stanley Kaplan course. Do that for 6 weeks, take it, and see how you do. And so, guess what I did? I quit my job. I moved to that ranch in Pipe Creek and commuted into San Antonio every day, treated that like a job. I was doing 12 hours a day at Stanley Kaplan, listening to tapes and taking practice tests, and then took the exam, and my score didn't come back for weeks. Extra long time. I was going to Princeton, had a grade and everything. And so when I went back home for about 3 weeks, and my mother said, Tim, if you come home, I've been building these little farmers' home houses. If you'll come home, you can do this, which was right up my alley. I didn't want to be in Texas anyway. I didn't want to be a lawyer, and so I still ain't got my scores back. So I go back to Texas, to San Antonio. I walk into Hillary's apartment. She said, what's the matter? I said, nothing's the matter. She said, yes, something's the matter. She looked at me. She said, you're not coming back, are you? I said, well, Hillary, I'll be a lawyer if you want to be a lawyer, but it'll be in South Carolina. So I'm going home. And then the next day I get my scores. It had gone up so drastically that I actually got accepted into a law school in Texas. And but anyway, I loaded up a U-Haul and came home that next day. So anyway, that's
what an experience.
It was a great experience. Yeah.
That's a pretty neat story. Okay, so so this story here, it's not a get rich quick story. This guy, if you want to learn about grind and perseverance, that's what took place here. Because I followed him really throughout his entire career. So let's fast forward now. You're back in South Carolina, and the entrepreneur thing's going. And tell us some of the paths that you went down.
Well, I became that home builder and real estate broker, and my first 5 years were fantastic. I did really well building houses, made a whole lot of money, and you get a big head and think you know everything, and started taking risks I shouldn't take, and I built a bunch of spec houses, and this was when Glenn Green will appreciate this, when I was borrowing money from PD State Bank at 14.5% for a construction loan. Can you believe that? And mortgage rates were about 10%. And so I had 13 houses out there. They were small houses. I mean, they were the construction loans at that time were probably $60,000 construction loans. And but I got stuck with 13 of them and couldn't sell them, couldn't give them away.
I thought that's the houses you wanted me and Steve to clean.
It probably was. It was. 88. That's right. That's right. And so anyway, we in that period of time, I was taking jobs that I shouldn't take, and was just trying to turn cash and finally, I mean, I just had enough. I said, hey, I just can't do it anymore. I'm 31 years old. I said, I've stopped the wheel. I said, I'm just not going to do it anymore. So I went, obviously owed a lot of money, like $300,000. And we eventually, came through sold the houses for basically construction loans and got those taken care of. But I ended up having about $300,000 of debt. And I went to the suppliers, whether it was Pamela Brick or Rich Tex or a lumber supplier, Evans Concrete or whatever supplier, H&S Furniture, and I said, listen, what you need to do, I've got some real estate here that hasn't been sold. You should go file a judgment, and when I sell it, you'll get paid something. And so I did that for some people, and some people said, look, I said, listen, I'll pay you out. If you don't mind waiting, I'll pay you out. And matter of fact, I was trying to get H&S Furniture at Darlington, John Siggers. I owed them $50,000 back then. That was a lot of money. And I had written them a check, trying to get them paid and into the bank before it all cleared out. And it didn't. It bounced. And of course, they could put me in jail. But they waited. And I'll finish that story in a second. So anyway, through that period of time, I had 7 years of hell. Went through a divorce. I both my parents passed away. I had 3 cars repossessed in those 7 years, and one with just one payment left on it made me so mad. And I've been hiding it for a month. I was just about ready to make that last payment, and they got it the night before. God, made me mad. And I went the next day to try to get it back. Nope. But anyway, so I got evicted. I was convicted. I convicted, or had to for bad checks in Columbia. I had to go pick up trash on the side of the road in Orange Sewer on I-20.
Let me pause, Tim.
Yeah.
So, those of you who don't know, Tim, I mean, all you've seen really is a polished entrepreneur. Honestly, I deem probably in the top 5 in the state. That's how much I think of this guy and knowing these other folks. But those of you that didn't know Tim, you probably never imagined that part, did you? Never saw that, the grind.
Well, anyway, and then I couldn't get jobs. I mean, I would try to do anything to get a job. Some people wouldn't hire me because of my background. Some people, we finally went to work at a place called Carolina Model Homes, and I kind of got back on my feet, and then I tried to do the home building business again in '92. And my brother and I, we had pre-sold about 6 or 7 houses at a fixed rate. Hurricane Andrew comes through, building supplies go out the roof. We end up, losing our butt. And that takes us to like '94, and in '94, the only job we were making up something where we could help people solve their credit. Me trying to help somebody solve their credit, where they could pay $300 and get a pre-approved credit card, and use that $300 as their credit, and they could build the credit. Anyway, this guy came in from a mobile home lot. He was a manager. He made a fortune selling mobile homes. So I said, well, maybe I should do that. Well, I got out there for about 3 months, and it was that particular person, that manager, the way they took advantage of people, I just couldn't do it. And that led me to, in the meantime, my brother and I have a falling out, because I was living with one brother for a while, another brother for a while, back and forth, and he and I had a falling out one night, and I had like $200 in my pocket, and so I said, well, I'll just leave. So I loaded up what car I had, and went and checked with Days Inn for $19, and next morning I got the paper out, morning news, and looked for rooms for rent. There was a room on there for $50 for a room, a bath, and kitchen privileges. So I went and knocked on that lady's door, Ms. DeBose, first thing Sunday morning, and she let me rent that room from her, and so I was there for about 2 months. Because when I was, this is an epiphany I had, because I had become a Christian back in like.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm talking about. You're right, Tim.
1987. But when you become a Christian, things don't. I was grasping for something. And but my life didn't change. It got worse. All that other stuff happened after that. All those repossessions and all that stuff, and evictions, all happened after that. And then I was sitting in Mrs. DeBose's room, and reading my Bible. And for whatever reason, this verse in Galatians popped out at me that said, "Forget your past and move forward." And I said, "Oh my God! What? I thought I had done that." But that epiphany that night, just like it was like I was a new person. And next day I started what I had learned from the home building business and the real estate business, that a little bit I learned in the 2 months I worked in the mobile home business. I started a business called Mobile Home Brokers. The worst thing, if you own a mobile home, it's hard to get out of it. And some people want to get one, don't have credit to get it, and they want to buy something new. So I started matching these people, ran a little ad in the paper, started matching people up. Next thing you know, I'm making 6 figures. And developed some property, and really got back on my feet. So it happened so quickly. Once I forgot my past, my failures, and put it behind me, and since that day, it's been just a rocket ship.
Sounds like that pivot point was when you saw that scripture.
Yeah, it was. It was like just opened my mind.
And surely, everything wasn't free and clear from there.
No.
There's many believers in this room, and there's constant challenges.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you got a pastor, the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
is riding with you.
Yeah.
So, never thought about dialing that Texas number during that period of time?
No, I have checked her on Facebook and I dodged a bullet.
All right, Tim, so not unless you got some more of those grinding stories, let's, in the sake of time, let's start talking about the peaks. I mean, you took us through the valley. Let's talk about some peaks.
I had gotten, that in that mobile home business I created, I got just a quick story on that. I mean, how God opens these doors for you. I was needed land to put these homes on, and I went to an old friend of mine, W.K. Bug Lund in Darlington. He and his son Kim and I were classmates in grammar school and high school. And when I was a home builder, I had bought some scattered lots from Mr. Lund. He's this fine Christian man. And so I went to see him. I knew he had like 50 acres that was kind of stuck back. It's hard to develop, but it's something I felt like I could do. And I went to he and Kim, and I said, I know y'all own this land, and I know Mr. Lund always had financial problems. It was difficult. So I said, I know y'all own this, and what I would do is I'd like to be a partner with you. I'll do all the work and take care of everything, and we'll split the profits. And so I went back to them a couple of weeks later, talked to them about it, and they said, Tim, if you'll just take over the payments, you can have the land. I said, can you believe that? So I created, and fortunately, the only place I could get a checking account was at SPC Cooperative in Hartsville. And Ricky Melton was the loan officer there, who was a longtime friend of mine. He let me get a checking account, and then he allowed me to take this loan over, just assume the payments.
You have any problem getting a checking account today?
No, I've got too many of them now. But that turned into 45 lots. I did $100 down, $100 and $87 a month for 10 years, and ended up bundling them up about 4 years into it because it got a hassle. I bundled all those mortgages and sold them to a guy in Columbia who bought them, and he collected the money. So I got cashed out of it, but it was great.
The godfather of all that, these guys will recognize his name as Lloyd Meekins.
Yes, I'm from here in Dillon.
He was a pioneer in that type of work and did really well.
But anyway, after I got that success, Jimmy Brown calls me. He had just gotten control of he had been a partner in a business called SMS. He had got control of that, and he called me and said, "Hey, I've got control of it. I'm looking for a good salesperson. You best I've ever known. Love you to come work with me." And I said, "Jimmy, I don't know. I'm kind of doing really good right now. I don't want to press my luck." And he said, "Why don't you come work with me part-time?" And I said, I can do that. And so I kept doing what I was doing with the mobile home brokering, and so I went to work with him, and for the first year, all we did was, because we didn't have a program, so the program is called the Work Opportunity Tax Credit, and it's a program where if an employer hires a person from a disadvantaged background, the employer gets a tax credit for it, and it can be up to $2,400. And so the program had been expired and had not passed Congress again, and so it passed in 1996. So I went to work with Jimmy in fall of '95, and for a year I just tried to learn the business. I'd call people, talk to them about it, and people like at Target and Aramark and Walmart, and I would just call them and say, "What's your tax credit program like, and how do you do it, and what do you like," and that kind of stuff. So when the program passed, I had developed these relationships with these companies and AutoZone. So when the program passed, in that month of August of 1996, we signed Burger King, all of Burger King Corporation's locations, which was at the time was about 1,000. We did all of Wendy's, which was about 3,000. We did all of AutoZone's, which was several thousand. We did all of Publix, which was about 800 in South. We did all of Tyson Foods. There was one more. We did Kroger. We did Kroger for the Southeast, and then, all big Fortune 100 names. And I mean that was just making phone calls, developing relationships, and the legislation passed, and we implemented all those. And then continued, implement those and getting good references. And then the next year we got Walmart, which was the gorilla, still is. And so we got Walmart as a client, and then once we got them, they helped us by having their name along these others. We just dominated the market, and we did that for 7. Most fun I've ever had in my life was from 1995 to 2003 when we built that business, and we were traveling all over the country, and it wasn't uncommon for me to leave on a Monday morning and come home on a Thursday night, and it was fun. I mean, Jimmy and I had a great fun time there. Frank Chisholm was involved in it, and we did. It was great, and we did so great that I'm sitting in my office one day, and the phone rings. It's got Dean Rayfield from California, works for ADP. He comes in and he says, "Listen, we've been following y'all in the marketplace," and the reason he called me because my name was kind of out in the marketplace, with all these big companies, and we've been following your company, and we have 5,000 salespeople at ADP, and we want to know if you would like to be a strategic partner, an alliance partner with us, and can you handle the volume of 5,000 salespeople? Well, the answer is always yes. So yes, we could, and then and then after 6 or 8 months of discovery and that kind of stuff, it went silent. And then about 6 months later, they called back and said, instead of the alliance, we'd like to do an acquisition. We fell down laughing on the floor. Somebody's going to buy us, So they did, and that was in 2003, and we had sold it for a whole lot of money, paid off all our debts, and anyway, in 2004, I stayed at ADP. I took a year off in 2004 to run for the state senate, and Dillon was really good to me back then. I left Dillon County with a 1,200 vote lead, and lost at Marion County by 7 votes, but it was a great experience. And then I went back to ADP, and which incidentally, losing that election was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
I know you were first declared the winner.
Yeah, I was.
I remember initially.
I was declared in the runoff first. We don't get into all those details.
Yeah,
But
no.
at any rate, worked at ADP until 2015. Retired in 2015 from ADP, and we started another business that didn't work. It's called Med Enroll. We started about 4. Med Enroll, Med Integrity, all involved in managing, some sort of government program, health insurance, that kind of stuff. Similar to what we did with tax credits. So we had a non-compete on tax credits. But as soon as that non-compete expired, we started Synergy Partners. And
What was the length of that non-compete?
it was a year for me, and then it was a year for Jimmy. So we had to wait 2 years because we started we started a company called BCN, which was a precursor for Synergy. Jimmy couldn't come in until after his non-compete came out. But anyway, we built that incredibly. We were so fortunate. We were great partners together because we built that business 3 times. Once SMS, once ADP, and then our Synergy Partners. And then I finally retired completely from Synergy Partners. Synergy Partners still now has about 300 people working downtown Florence, and another business we have called ERS that has about 150 people there. Wow. But anyway, I retired completely from that part of the business. Retired from tax credit business in 2023, 3 years ago.
What my mind keeps going back to, and this is, I never thought a theme would come of this, but back to Galatians.
Yeah.
I mean, how elevation starts to happen when you completely buy in.
Yep, 100%.
All right, so beyond that, those were technical businesses, but look, you've flourished in a lot of diverse areas. Let's speak on that a little bit.
Well, when we sold ADP, I'm flush with cash, and of course, when you get flush with cash, people come out of the woodwork to want to do business with you, and there was a.
I'm sorry for any time.
You never did. But there was a restaurant called Victor's, Bill Harwell, and he'd been doing a lot. When we entertained our clients, we did it at his restaurant, and we'd do catering with his restaurant.
Didn't he years ago, what was it?
Adam's Rib was one of his early ones too.
Okay, I remember that.
Yeah. But he had Victor's at the time. This was he started Victor's in 1998, 2003. he says, would you be interested in investing in the business? And my mom always told me, I always knew when you invest in business, you want to at least get 51%. And so I said, well, Bill, I wouldn't mind doing something. Let me talk to Ann. I talked to Ann, and she, owning the restaurant would be fun. And we'd been there a lot. And so we bought 51% of it, and that was 03. And then Bill.
They were down on Irby.
They were down in
time.
Old Shoney's,
Yeah.
in Old Shoney's building, and that was and Bill. Our partnership lasted about 4 years, and it just didn't work out. Different priorities on work ethics, and basically I gave him an ultimatum that either you buy me out or I buy you out. And he went and picked up his cookbooks and left, and then. I didn't have a replacement. That's another lesson I learned. You always have the replacement in place before you do that. And so I'm rolling silverware about all I know how to do, and trying to motivate the line cooks and the servers, and then got an executive chef to come in, and we were there. He lasted about 4 or 5 years, and then found somebody else. Find somebody else first before he let the other person go, and he came in, and then. That takes us about where in 2011 I'd ride downtown, and I just knew where the location I was in we couldn't grow. I mean we were doing if we did $1,000 a night or 12,000 a week, 12,000 a week. That was a big week, and I was losing money hand over fist. I just knew I had to have a bigger place and do something drastic, and so I'd ride downtown all the time. I said, I know that. The Civic Center, the Performing Arts Center's coming, the museum's coming, the Little Theater, all that's going to be downtown. There's going to need a need there.
And Tim, we'll transition now to our talk about downtown. So many of these folks are involved in the downtowns here in Loudoun and Lakeview. So
I would ride down, and my wife and I would get in the car to go somewhere. It always went downtown, went down Dargan, down Evans, and just rode around and look at all these empty buildings, and I said, surely there's something got to happen here. And
it took a lot of vision, though, because Tim, when I got out of the Marine Corps, my first job coming back in 1995, you remember the News Journal?
Mm-hmm.
Jim Harris, which was downtown,
yeah, right.
And we were wasn't a lot of folks downtown, and there was certainly a lot of undesired. It was a red district zone downtown Florence at this time. We didn't even walk out the front door at times because it was, quite frankly, crime-ridden. So it took a great deal of vision to.
Well, with all the investments going downtown, I mean, those 3 buildings alone were like $90 million that was going to be invested, and surely there had to be a way for use these other dilapidated buildings. And so we'd ride around, and when I was with, finally called a real estate agent to take me around, and went and met, at the time, George Bailey was head of the Downtown Development Corporation, and John Keith, who was an African-American pediatrician doctor. He owned some property he had inherited from his mother, and he had actually started a little nightclub, and it was really cool. 2 things that happened that really helped, and this is where government helps, right? I mean, maybe people don't want government to help, but I'm telling you, government has a function, and it's filling the gaps where other things, and nobody else will. And so the FDDC has started having these concerts on Friday afternoon, and out there it's hot as blazes. I mean, and there were kids and families running around. I mean, 200 or 300, and I'm thinking, gosh, they have nowhere to go. They have nothing. They're looking for something. And then John Keith opened his little his nightclub, and it was full of very mixed race, which that was so enchanting to see. That another thing that said, gosh, this needs to happen. And so and then I got Agnes to take us around, and we were in what is now Hotel Florence. And Agnes said, Tim, this would be a great place for a hotel. I said, Agnes, I ain't this a hotel. I just want a place for the restaurant. And she said, well, have you ever met Chris Scott, Ben Ziegler, Randy Key? I said, I've heard of them. She said, well, they just finished this. Chris Scott's sitting over here, so he can either verify or correct me. They had just finished redeveloping the old library and created an office for a law firm. And got all the development credits and abandoned building credits and other new tax credits and all that kind of stuff. And so I called him up and we chatted and one night Randy and I were at John Keith's club and we'd been chatting about it, the possibility. I mean, let me tell you, Florence, that old Evans Street with every window was, if it wasn't boarded up, it was knocked out, pigeons and bats flying in and out of it. We walked through that, what is now Hotel Florence on the second and third floor. It was literally knee deep in pigeon poop. And I mean, it was really awful. And so, anyway, and Chris and I, we talked to Mike over at what's the place in Atlanta? Abington Manor. Yeah. We had lunch with him to find out. So we were thinking about doing this boutique hotel. He poo-pooed it. Oh my God, you got to do so much to be a boutique hotel. And then we talked to Raildex and had him walk through the place. And he was like, "Ain't no way in hell Raildex is doing anything in here." And we had, so we had a lawyer, a real estate developer, Chris, myself with a restaurant that was going to lease, 8,000 or 10,000 square feet, but we didn't have any hotel experience. It had two architect, and so we went in, and I was talking to Randy Key, who was the architect one night, John Key's place. I remember standing out in front of it. He said, "You want to do this thing?" I said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we shook hands right there, and then we started proceeding with it, and which we took a lot. We had to convince the city to participate with us. They were not bought into it, and which was a kind of an interesting conversation. Chris can back me up on this one. We went to meet with Mayor Wakila and the city manager. Mayor, you might want to take notes on this. We went into the mayor's office, and the way I like to tell the story, Steve had his legs up on his conference table and head back. He says, "What can I help with you, boys? How can I help you, boys?" And I said, "Well, Stephen, the city needs to get its checkbook out and give us some money to do this project." And David Williams, who was a city manager, which would be Tim Harper, right? And David said, "Well, Tim, wait, y'all are entrepreneurs. You're supposed to, invest your money and risk your money." I said, "David, we're not fools. We want somebody. This is a partnership. We're going to create taxes and jobs, and y'all need to mitigate our risk." And we had a meeting a couple weeks later. We actually went through the county to try to get out of the TIF district to put some pressure on the city to actually come to the table. And the best thing that ever happened to us was a guy named Drew Griffin, who had been head of the water and sewer department. David retired. Drew was going to retire. They talked him into taking over the city manager, and that guy had vision. And he knew. Matter of fact, he said when we came back for the meeting, and we had given them a list of, 20 things. I went on the internet and got everything I could possibly think of as an incentive. I went through all, and I gave it to them. They came back, and literally I'm writing it down. And David was going through the city manager before Drew took over, and he was going through all these lists, and it ended up being they were going to give us like $12,000 to invest $8 million. And we all collectively, we pushed up, stood up. We're out, And then Drew spoke up, and Buddy Brown was in the meeting too. Drew spoke up and said, "Hold on a second." And everybody sat back down, and they went outside, came back, and Drew said, "Mayor, if a 50-unit subdivision was being built outside the city limits and they need sewer and water, what would we do to it?" So we would run the sewer and water to it. And said, "These guys are building a 50-unit subdivision, and they're 10 feet from the sewer. Why don't we take that money that we would have done for that to run the sewer a mile and give them a tax credit?" Wow. So $2 million for them, and then we got $2 million in other state credits and federal credits, and made the deal work.
I like that you use the phrase kind of stand in the gap, because many of us probably here too don't want the government too much in our business. Nevertheless, there is a role to play, and had that not taken place, we wouldn't enjoy the fruits that are downtown Florence. Now, what kind of stance did the city take on some of these abandoned buildings and things of that nature?
Well, where that came in was the Downtown Development Corporation. Unfortunately, it takes a while to put those things in place, and through the Downtown Development Corporation, ordinances were written for abandoned buildings, holding owners accountable, signage, cleaning it up, and also incentives to start a business and/or and there's of course Hannah Davis runs that office now, and there's a published list. When we came along, there wasn't anything. They made it for us, but after that, they should come up with a standard list of what you can get from the city as an incentive.
And that's tough, and it gets tougher in a smaller town because we all got friends that own these buildings. But you've got to mow your back. If there's ever going to be progress, you got to take a stance at some point. Sure glad Florence did that some time ago.
No, it did. Listen,
Get in the park down here now, man.
I love it. Yeah, we've got
That's
two
a
car
good thing,
garage
right?
and can't park. Yeah.
And I think there might have been multiple owners in this, but you guys might remember downtown Travis Jewelers. You remember that? So Bill Travis was a owner in the Holy Smokes.
He was, and his wife still owns it. Yeah.
Dillon. How far apart are you and Bill Travis? How far apart were y'all in school?
Bill, a couple of years, maybe 3 years now.
Okay, all right. You holding up good, man. Any more to talk about downtown? Is there anything else that really comes to mind? I mean, it's flourishing now.
Look, I got a 5-minute story.
Please,
bear with 5 minutes. I think it's a great
I'm good.
story.
Y'all good? 5 minutes?
And
We'll take questions afterwards.
Yeah, I really appreciate you, Rodney. I really appreciate you inviting me. I enjoyed telling these stories, and I've always enjoyed your friendship.
Thank you.
After we had the hotel complete and we were operating, when you get tax credits, state and federal tax credits, and we need cash, so we don't want the credits, so we sell the credits to someone at a certain percentage on the dollar. And Chris was intimately involved in all the financial part of this. And so anyway, a year into it, we're waiting on the National Park Service to give us our certification so that we can actually, we've already taken the money now. Right, we'd already taken the money from the investor that was buying the tax credits from us, from both state and federal, and then we hadn't got the certificate from the National Park Service, and we'd been denied. You have to go through the state, and the state recommends it, and it had been denied twice, and you never get it after it's been denied twice. And so
we're calling on Galatians again about right now.
Oh, we're sweating it out, and the way I'm going to tell the story, the way I remember it, everybody has got a little bit different story. But
we'll give you a chance, Chris, after this.
So anyway, we're got this money due to $2 million, and we don't have the certificate, and so and this is a story about relationships. So Tom Rice had just gotten elected, and so I was active in Tom's campaign, so I called Tom to see if he can help us out. Got a way to help. And so I called Tom. He said, "Tim, I just got here. I mean, I've been here. This was like January 12th or something. He'd been there like 2 days." He says, "I'll help you, but I don't know how to help." And I said, "Well, let's why don't we do this? Let's get John DePere on the phone, former congressman, and Robin Talon on the phone.
We all know Robin. Most of you know
Dillon
John.
guy." And so we get on the. I have a conference call with those three. And I lay out what an issue is. They need the National Park Service to give us a certificate, and we've already been turned down twice for two small little details, like one room wasn't big enough and where a staircase was. And so we were talking about it, and Robin, he speaks up. He says, "Well, Tim." Tim, he says, "Tim." Robin's accent. He says, when I was in Congress, and I still go up there occasionally to the prayer breakfast, I sit with a guy named Don Young. And he is the only congressman, a Republican congressman from Alaska, and he's head of the Appropriations Committee for the National Park Service. Wow, that's a winner, right? So Tom says, "Well, I don't know him. I'll go meet him." So Tom goes and meets Don Young. And so Tom sets up a meeting with the National Park Service and Don Young in Tom's office, which is about, we were going up there, it's like 2 weeks away. And so Randy Key and I go up there, Mayor Wakila, Drew Griffin goes up. But in that 2 week period of time, I just felt a little uneasy. I mean, like we could still get denied, right? And so I was at Francis Mary talking to Dr. Carter. And I said, Dr. Carter explained everything, just explained to y'all. He said, Tim, you need to talk to Senator Levin. I think Senator Levin, what's the state senator got to do with this? And so I called Senator Levin on Saturday morning. This is the Saturday before the Tuesday we were going up. And I explained everything to him. He says, Tim, I'll call you back in a few minutes. So this is Saturday morning now. This is a state senator, but it might as well have been governor, head of the Senate Finance Committee. He calls me back and says, I just talked to Lindsey Graham. You need to call Lindsey, explain all this to him. And I said, okay. So I called Lindsey Graham, and he was in New Orleans at the time, and we chat for 15, 20 minutes, telling him this whole saga of what's going on. And he says, Tim, I want you to move the meeting, get time to move the meeting to my office, and go up there and you meet with Richard Perry and Andrew King as Chief of Staff and Assistant Chief of Staff. Yes, sir. And so we go up on Monday before Tuesday morning. Our meeting was like 11 o'clock, and we were up there Tuesday morning and explained everything to them. And they were such quick studies. So we go to the meeting start. Lindsay wasn't there, and so Tom's introducing everybody, and then Richard Perry takes over the meeting as the Chief of Staff, and we had Clyburn's people were there. It was a loaded room full of influential people. And Don Young was there. And Don's tall. He's like 6'5". He carries a Bowie knife. I mean, he's Alaskan. And so the meeting starts, and Don Young starts asking them questions from National. We had the National Park Service, the assistant director, and the guy who turned our project down. They're all in the room. And so Don starts asking them, well, how do you know where that stairwell was? And because the building was built in 1890, right? How do you know where it is? And they started challenging the National Park Service, and they really didn't have a good answer. And then he really got loud. I mean, he was real loud. I mean, he was arguing, yelling at them. And Tom was trying to calm him down, Richard, and we just you got everybody kind of quiet. And they started telling why we couldn't do this thing. And so, sure enough, what happened next was Lindsey Graham walks in the room. He's all out of breath. He walks in the room. Y'all, ladies, pardon this French.
Man, Facebook's a beautiful.
He walks in the room, greets everybody, and looks at National Park Service director, the assistant director, and the guy who turned our project down. He says, I don't give a shit what has happened for today. You ain't leaving this room without a yes. And sure enough, all of a sudden they said, maybe we need to go to South Carolina and have a seminar on tax credits, and maybe we can go down and visit this place and see what was really actually happening. And so I think, Chris, the end result, we moved a room 4 feet, made it 4 feet bigger, and we got our tax credits.
Great story.
Yeah.
Great story. The grind always comes first, and many can attest it here. I've been in the political world a little while, and I've seen deals happen. I mean, they just happen politically.
Yeah, to finish the story, I was at Lindsay's place in D.C., and David Wilkins was there, who's an ambassador to Canada. And I tell this whole story to David, and David said, Tim, that's a story about relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so let's open it up now, and I need some